Good morning.
Okay, good morning, everybody. We have Dave, you have more?
Yes, we do, 46.
Thank you. Okay, since I heard an announcement that 17 minutes after they would interrupt our meeting, so if we're in the middle of something, we're going to have to stop. Today we have an election for Cobrua. Felix, are you ready for the election? This is Felix. Want to tell them who you are and take the mic, Felix. This is for the Cobrua.
Good morning. My name is Felix Wadid, and I'm the chair of the election committee. This morning, we are scheduled to have an election for 3 directors of the Cobrua group. 4 candidates have filed for intent to run for the 3 positions, but one candidate, Regina Acasella, has withdrawn her name. There's no contested election. The other 3 candidates, Martin Fish, Milton Fishberger, and Carol Haynes, will fill the 3 open seats. Carolyn Haynes. I'm asking Alan Herman, the secretary of this meeting, to cast his 1 vote for the slate of Martin Fish, Milton Fishberger, and Caroline Haynes. Caroline, Martin, and Milton will each serve a 2-year term ending February 2025. Alan?
The vote is so cast.
Thank you, Felix.
We will be taking nomination from the floor for the M&O committee. In order to be eligible to run for a position as an M&O committee member, a candidate at the time of the election must be a permanent resident of Century Village West who is a unit owner of record. A permanent resident is defined as a person who has resided at Century Village West for at least 9 months in the preceding calendar year, and either a member of the executive board or director of the Constituents Members Condominium Association of Cobrua. I will now take nomination from the floor. When there's no nomination, the following is the slated for the 3 positions for the M&O committee in alphabetic order. David Fisher, Lynn Roberts, Stanley Siegel. Oh, so we're going over. Cobrua election. The M&O committee will be David Fisher, Lynn Roberts, Stanley Siegel. I'm giving this to Alan as record.
Now, we have to vote on them next month, is that correct?
Oh, next month. Okay. So it's March 14.
Yeah, March you tell us about M&O.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. No, thank you for volunteering. Okay, we have the minutes from the last meeting.
The minutes of the January 2023 delegates meeting were published in the Cobrua Reporter. Has any delegate found an omission, a correction, or an addition to those printed minutes? Are there any objections to accepting them as published in the Cobrua Reporter? Thank you. The minutes are accepted.
Okay, President's report. Do we have a lot of veterans here? If there's veterans here, raise your hands. Okay, I'll tell you why I did this. This is something that's going to take place if you vote on it in November. Marilyn Haynes from Exeter wanted to hold a luncheon for the veterans in Century Village. She went to Judy from, and Judy said that they couldn't do it. So she called me to see if we could do it. I said, I think we could do it to go to this vote for it, but we can't spend any money. But I asked Mr. Levy for money once before, and he gave it to me So tell him I'm requesting money for this event. So she figured out it was going to be $1,500. She went to Mr. Levy and he said, tell Mike I'll give him $1,800 to do it. So we have the money to do it. I don't want to vote on it now. I want you to think about it. It will be just for the residents of Century Village, the veterans and their guests. It will be in the party room on Veterans Day. And Mr. Levy's picking up the tab $1,800. So I just going to give you a little warning. Think about it, go back to your community, and we'll vote on it next month. We're going to meet, that's about it for me. Now we'll go, the minutes. Let's see, present treasurer's report. Lynn's not here. Does anybody have it? Okay, Lynn couldn't make it for personal reasons. Stanley, M&O Committee.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. The committee met with management on Wednesday, January 18th. Present were Judy Milliken, Vice President, Site Administrator, Dan Cruz, Regional Facilities Manager, Abby Koffler, VP of Entertainment, and Laura Coffey, the Senville Attorney. 6 committee members were present. Laura reviewed the procedure permitted in asking a resident the type of dog that they may have at the pool. Questions are really very limited. You can only ask what kind of dog, not the breed, the service or emotional, and the purpose of the dog. If the person says it's a service animal, and even though they may be lying, it stops at that point. You cannot go any further. So right now it's a very restricted thing. The dog must be leashed and not allowed to run loose at the pool. We selected 4 benches to be placed on the New England side of the community. We'll be examining the other side, the New England, the Century Village side, and to see to decide how many benches we need there. Blinking warning lights, alerting drivers that pedestrian crosswalks are coming up, have been ordered. We should be receiving them by the end of February. The bus depot and the parking area has been completed. We're adding some landscaping to just make it look a little decent. FBL will be conducting a survey on charging stations. Tentatively, the date is for April, and we'll see what recommendations they come up with. The tennis club submitted a plan on what the pickleball court should be done, or where they should be, and the pickleball people submitted a plan on pickleball. We tabled it for the time being because we're going to be repairing the tennis court on New England. A request to show a trailer for the movie I, Mordecai was turned down. Oh. It was limited to 150 people, which was a little difficult for us. The problem with Academy and the road problems, where there was oil spillage, etc. Legal is still working on it. They're trying to resolve it in a professional manner. The New Year's Eve show had delays in between acts. The act coming from West Palm got caught up in a traffic accident, and that's what delayed them.
Can I have your attention, please? 1 moment of silence. Thank you, everyone.
December collections totaled $96,023. Most of it goes back into our treasury. The committee met with the new security chief, Jody, who has a excellent background in education and experience in training people while she was in the military. It should work out well for us the way Steve Stein worked out, which was promotion from within. Security is also having a problem with real estate agents bringing in renters in the evening. They are now working on a solution to resolve this problem. The committee and management will be working together testing the weight scales currently being used by other security companies in the area, and this will be taken up in one of our meetings. Any questions regarding my report? Pardon me?
Fred Lisco-Wolverton, just to make sure everybody understands, emotional support animals are not allowed at the pool.
Yes.
Only service dogs.
Right. But if somebody says, let's say they have an emotional support, but they say you can't check any papers or anything, you're very limited, unfortunately.
Unless you're the director and you know that.
Well, yeah, in that case, but the legal people told us it's restricted. It's a tough issue.
Well, that's why I make sure all the directors know what the animals are.
Got a question in the back?
Yes, don't the animals have to be tagged by their collar?
He'll come to you with a mic.
It was my understanding that
Please tell us who you are, please.
Martin Fish from Rexford. It's my understanding that the animals have to have a tag if they're a service dog.
Not really, no. It's very loose. Over the years, we've tried to tighten up on these regulations, Mike and I. We spoke to congressmen, we spoke to representatives. It doesn't help. It's something that they do not want to touch. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Stan, you want to do community affairs too while you're at it?
Actually, there's not much right now on community affairs. We've had a number of accidents in the area, but thank God nothing recent on the premises. So just drive carefully, observe the speed limits, and hopefully everyone falls in line and does the right thing.
Yes.
Got a hand in the bags.
You lose weight.
Is there Rexford? I said Karen from Rexford. Okay. I have a question about insurance on animals, pet insurance. Do we in the village have any rule that there has to be pet insurance?
Not that I know of, no.
I mean, private homeowners, when they have homeowners insurance, have
Not
to.
every homeowner has insurance. It used to be that the state said you must have it, but it was very difficult to administer, so they dropped it.
So if
Yes,
a
you have to have
person,
homeowners insurance, but if you don't, there's no enforcement.
so if a person has homeowner insurance or unit insurance, whatever it is, do they have to insure their pet?
I'll look into it, but I don't know. If you're not required, if you're required to have homeowners, but you don't have homeowners, and you have a dog,
No, but I'm saying
No
if you
insurance.
I happen to have homeowners insurance. If I had a pet, do I have to have pet insurance on that policy?
my suggestion is read your policy.
Insurance agent.
No, you have to read your policy. Every policy is a little different.
Okay. Security. Okay, we now have the security report.
Good morning. My name is Jody and I'm representing United Security. I'm going to give you the monthly recap for January. For January, for commercial and contractors, we had 4,513. Fire rescue and AMR was 164. Food delivery was 2,822. Miles patrol was 3,751. And pre-authorized calls was 3,859. Any questions? Go ahead.
Martin Fisher, Rexford. So this issue has been brought up before, and that is calling the security gate to admit somebody. So just this past week, I was having a meeting with someone at 7:30 in the morning. I guess they're coming through around 7 o'clock in the morning. I had to stay up past 12 o'clock midnight to call them in because you can't call the person in before 12 o'clock midnight. That was not the system a while back, and then it changed. Can we call a person in for 2 days? That seems to be, so I'm sure other people have this problem, and it's been brought up before. Well, I mean, what's the purpose of such a rule where you have to wait till past midnight to call someone in?
If you have guests that's going to be coming for more than 1 day, we suggest you go to the ID office and add them. If it's the case where they're going to come in the next day, the system does not allow access from the day before. You have to call the day before, or you have to call the day of for that day. It doesn't allow us to do the day before for the following day. And it's been like that since I've been here for about 4 years now.
Let me just mention, this has been discussed at the M&O committee last month with Judy Millington. Judy also said the same thing as Jody's saying, that it was always just calling in. We told her many times on the phone when we called, we used to say press 1 for this, press 2 for tomorrow, press 3 for both days together. And she went back and checked and said, no, that's not what it was. So she's looking into it further, because the rest of us say, we know that's the way it was, even though maybe they weren't paying for that with the company that we used. So it's being discussed further with Judy Millington right now. And maybe we have a meeting tomorrow, we're going to know, maybe we'll have more of an update about it.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for security, please. Fred Hadley, Cornwall Heat.
Go ahead.
With regard to the issue of service animals, and I've had occasion to call security to Cornwall Pool, and I believe that's what generated this latest. My question, well, I have several questions. First is, are service animals allowed to be brought into the theater for a live show?
Yes.
I'm sorry, who's answering?
You said chairman. I'm the chairman, I think.
Yeah, so they're allowed to come into a live show?
Yes.
Okay. The next question is, are dogs allowed to sit on the lounge chairs without any towel, thereby transferring fecal matter from the dog to the chair that I and others have to now sit in? Isn't that some kind of health rule? What's the ruling on that? Because I've seen that. In fact, there are pictures of the dog just sitting right on the chaise lounge at Cornwall Pool. I don't think that's appropriate. I wouldn't let a person sit there without a bathing suit on. Why would you let an animal? It's not clean.
I will check into it. My feeling is if the dog is leashed, it should be on the ground, but we'll check it out.
Okay. Are they allowed to sit then in someone's lap, which is what we have in Cornwall every day? There's an individual who claims that she has a service dog, which, well, I won't even go into my doubts, but she just leaves the dog on her lap. So you have to really make a specific rule on that. I think that they belong on the ground. That's where animals belong. And the other question is, are they allowed to roam around the pool off the leash, or with the leash trailing on the floor?
If you heard my report, I said the dog has to be on a leash. So that still stays as the answer.
These are the types of things that we're living with at the Cornwall pool. Yesterday, a dog was running around unleashed or dragging the leash and sitting on the chairs several days in a row. And the person's been living here quite a while. So I think we need to clarify those rules for the sake of health and safety. Thank you.
Susan Watson Preston. Regarding the call-in, if I'm expecting someone into my home early in the morning, of course I get up early enough to expect them. Call in that morning. You could call in any time. So if I'm expecting somebody at 7:30 and I get up at 6 o'clock, immediately I call in at 6 o'clock in the morning. And that should alleviate the problem of staying up past 12 o'clock. Thank you.
Steve Levine, Wolverton. As far as the gate access is concerned, I've been using the ABDI Gate Access app on my phone forever, and it works beautifully, and I can put down a firm or an individual for arrival days, months, weeks in advance, an individual or a company, and just put it in there once, and it stays there, and I can delete them when I need to. And it's a very, very easy way to do it, and I don't bother calling ever. So it saves me the problem of getting up or not getting up. I just put them down there and they're there. And for specific family members who I always want to have access, I can put them there as regulars, and they always have access to the gate. So it's a very easy app to use, and I find it the best. Thank you. It's called Gate Access.
Dave, we have a gentleman over here had his hand. No, he had his hand up first.
Bob Dennis from Yarmouth. Just a quick question. When I moved in this year, and I was surprised when I called the front gate to tell them about all the various deliveries I was having, and they said you don't need to call in for deliveries. So from a security standpoint, anyone can drive up and say, I'm a delivery man, I'm delivering pizza or anything. I'm just surprised that people aren't required to call the gate to let them know that a delivery is coming in, and that's purely a security question.
Whoever told you that was wrong. You have to call everybody in, whether they're making deliveries or not. Whenever, if I have someone delivering something, even food, you have to call it in.
I agree.
Whoever told you that gave you wrong information.
Okay, because I'm telling you, I've had numerous deliveries, and because of what I was told when I moved in, I've never called ahead, and I've never had a delivery person not be allowed in.
Well, we'll straighten that out. Right, Chief? Thank you.
Larry Krankow, Tennessee. A couple of weeks ago, I pulled into the parking lot, and there was a delivery truck blocking the entrance to the parking lot. I waited a few minutes, I was before security, and then the guy came down and I said, you're not supposed to park there. And he laughed at me, and he just took off. I sent a letter to security, and I don't know if you got it or not, but I just wanted to know what the policy is about delivering trucks, blocking parking spots or taking parking spots. Thank you.
Chief will answer.
Delivery trucks are supposed to park in a guest parking spot. The only ones that can block the hazardous parking is AMR, fire rescue, emergency vehicles. So if it's the case where someone is in the spot where they're not supposed to be, security is supposed to come and ask them to park in the guest spot. And if that's the case, I need to look into that, because we have 2 rovers, so they're supposed to come out.
Felix Radish from Mansfield. Stanley Siegel mentioned something about a lights for the flashing of our stop signs for pedestrian. So I guess it's a security question as well. Those lights, will they turn on automatically when somebody approaches that crosswalk, or will it be on all the time?
They should be blinking all the time.
Okay, because last Saturday night it was very windy and someone was crossing the station where the exits for our entrance exits, and the person was putting his hand over his head to make sure his hat doesn't fly away, and I could have missed him because he was all in black, and that kind of scares me because the light wasn't flashing, but then we don't have that light yet. But I'm concerned about someone passing without having that issue, and could be a danger for our future.
Any other questions for the chief? Thank you, chief. Oh, you have a question? I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead.
Susan Anderson, Suffolk Gate. We have a big issue over in Suffolk where the First Service Residential, when they come to do any kind of services over by us, parks in the no parking crosswalk. Also, the mailman and everybody else. Since we took out those yellow posts, everybody parks there. I feel like the police over there tell them, yeah, you can't do that anymore. It's constant. So,
Chief?
As far as First Service, we've never seen or had a complaint like that, but now that you brought it up, we can speak with them to let them know not to park there. And then it also depends on what they're coming to do, because First Service is in charge of Suffolk. It's a management for Suffolk. For the post office, we can also speak with them as well to have them not park in that residing area. We can speak with the board as well to see what they can do as well. But the thing is, if you guys don't bring a lot of stuff to our attention, because keep in mind, sometimes security is probably busy on the other side of the village. It's 16 associations. If you bring it to our attention, we can come to that side, because
I called First Service. I didn't know.
Yes, contact security directly. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief. Okay, we're going to go to the Cobrua group. Sid?
Good morning. First, I want to recognize our outgoing members of the board. I want to thank Regina Apicella and Jerry Walcole for all your efforts. It was not easy digging into and making sense of 50-year-old legal documents. We did, however, get off to a good start with your help. I would also like to welcome Milton Fishberger, Carolyn Haynes, and Martin Fish to the board. Milton returns to the board for a second term, and Carolyn and Martin are newcomers. You may have read their articles in the Reporter, but I've asked them each to please come up this morning and introduce themselves. So, Carolyn, Martin, Milton, please come up, and we'll start alphabetically. Martin, will you speak first? Then Milton, and then Carolyn.
Thank you, Sid. So just to give a short introduction about myself, so again, I'm Martin Fish. I've just entered my second year as a board member and vice president of the Rexford Association. I've owned a unit here since December of 2011 and have been a full-time resident since March of 2019. My background is both as a lawyer and as running a privately owned small legal publishing company. For those of you who have attended the informational meeting recently, some of the immediate tasks that I look forward to working on are how to arrange, beginning of the discussion, of how how to arrange the financing of the purchase of the West properties, and how to structure the future management of the Cobrua group that would take over in 2019, which would be an expanded group. So I hope to be, I'm looking forward to working with the new directors and being a newbie of sitting quietly and learning the ropes at the beginning. And I look forward again to working on your behalf. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Carolyn Haynes, and I've lived in Century Village for 6 years now. I'm glad to be part of the Cobrua board, who will play such a critical role in the future of Century Village. What I bring to the table is knowledge of business and finance, as well as an understanding of how not-for-profit organizations are run and managed. Academically, I have a college degree and an MBA degree with a specialty in finance. Professionally, I worked for 40 years in banking and finance. During my career, I was a bank president in a suburban Chicago location, and I managed a wide variety of business units of up to $1 billion in deposits and up to 250 employees. I wanted to be part of the Cobrua board because I recognize that the 2028 event will be the single largest transaction that any of us will ever be part of from a financial standpoint. I wanted to be part of the process, and I wanted to be part of participating in the final recommendation. My responsibility and that of the other board members will be to study all the options that could impact the transaction and be in a position to make the best recommendation for all of us here at Century Village. But this committee cannot work in a vacuum. It's imperative that everyone who owns a unit in Century Village, now and through 2028, be interested in what happens in 2028. As the newest member of the board, I have not attended my first board meeting yet. But I do know that this board, which has been in existence for almost 2 years, has done really good work, but has its future work cut out for it. The board, aided by outside professionals, will need to figure out the ins and the outs, the ups and the downs, and the pros and the cons of the transaction between now and 2028. There's a lot of work ahead. But as unit owners, we all have work to do over the next 5 years. We have an obligation to educate ourselves about what's going to happen in 2028. I know the Cobrua board will be engaged, and we need your commitment to be engaged also. We can all be engaged by ensuring that we read the Cobrua Reporter every month. We need to be curious about what the transaction means for each of us individually. And, and we need to attend the meetings and presentations that will periodically be offered in the theater. For example, the last presentation was about a week and a half ago on Friday the 3rd, and in my opinion, frankly, it wasn't really terrifically well attended. But I'm confident that the people who did attend came away with a much better understanding of what lies ahead. And all were invited to ask questions after the formal presentation on an open mic, and many great questions were offered and presented by residents of Century Village. I strongly encourage all unit owners in the future to attend these meetings because they're really important for gathering information. And the bottom line is the 2028 transaction will be a big deal, and there's a lot of information to gather between now and then. I'm excited about the progress that's been made so far, and I look forward to contributing on your behalf because I know that all of us want Century Village Boca to continue to be the best place to call home. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Milton Fishberger, but I would like to welcome Martin and Carolyn to the Cobrua group, which I have been a part of for a bit, I guess. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My wife and I purchased our apartment in Cornwall in late 2004. And for many years, we were snowbirds, as many of us were, before we became permanent residents, as I was still working in 2004. We moved here permanently in 2017, and I don't regret it, even though my wife is still hesitant about living in the heat in the summertime here. I currently serve as a director on the Cornwall Board, as well as one of the directors of the Cobrua Board. I worked for the City of New York for over 35 years in different city agencies and retired as the Deputy Fire Commissioner in the New York City Fire Department and reported directly to the Fire Commissioner. I may be repeating some of the information that you have read in the Cobrua Reporter about myself, but I will try not to bore you too much, and I'll go through this fairly quickly. There were 3 assistant commissioners reporting to me and my staff, which consisted of approximately 700 people in the fire department. There were 2 budgets that encompassed my division, a capital budget of approximately $100 million a year, and an operating budget of approximately $60 million per year. The 3 main divisions that reported to me were facilities, which involved the building and renovation of new firehouses and EMS stations, and the repairs to the existing structures. And I don't have to tell you, if you came from New York, those firehouses are very old. And while we did build some new ones, they did need a lot of attention while I was there. Another area that reported to me were the vehicles. And again, in the fire department, we have hundreds of fire trucks, ambulances, and specialty vehicles. All of those vehicles were purchased, or the specs for those vehicles were written by my department, and we work with another city agencies to make sure that they were in fact purchased. My office was also involved and actually responsible for the IT division in the fire department. All of these 3 main divisions that reported to me were not only the only ones, but there were some others, such as the quartermaster and some administrative areas. There were 3 main specific projects that I headed up outside of my regular duties, which were upgrading the communication system after 9/11, the firefighter personal safety system, which is still used today, and working with the police department to set up a consolidated 9/11 system for New York City. I have experience in contracts and purchasing. I want to thank you very much for listening, and I could say that I enjoy working on Cobrua because the people are great to work with, but it is a tough job and it's very time consuming, and as someone just previously mentioned, Carolyn mentioned, we do hope that there are going to be a lot more participation by people who come to the meetings that are run by us, as well as our attorneys, Peter Sachs. So all of your questions, because there are so many rumors out there on what is going on or what's not going on, that it is I shouldn't say kind of, it is very important that you all understand what in fact it means to us as a community to purchase this land. Thanks so much and have a good morning.
Good. Thank you very much, Carolyn, Milton, and Martin. I think you'll all agree that we're adding a lot of important educational and work experience to the board, a lot of pertinent experience. I also want to remind you that if you were not able to attend the event with our attorneys in the theater last week, you can still view the entire program on the SENWest website anytime, anywhere, and on any device. Your cell phone, your tablet, your laptop, whatever. All you need is your SENWest access code for gate access. If you're an owner or resident and have never gotten an access code, you're entitled to it. So please visit the ID office to set it up. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for volunteering. But you know what we forget? The delegates are volunteers too. Everyone here is a volunteer. No one says, oh, let's thank the delegates, because they don't realize that you're volunteers. Everyone sitting in a delegate seat is a volunteer, like everyone up here. And it takes a special person to volunteer, because you give up your own time, you give up family time, and with things changing fast here, like us possibly buying, I think we should buy it in 6 or 8 years. You people make the decisions that affect everybody in Century Village, and I appreciate that, and I think the people of Century Village should appreciate. Okay, old business. Anything under old business? Anything under new business? Good welfare from the residents. From the delegates. Any good welfare from the residents? Oh, you got something back there? I'm sorry.
What's that? Yeah, Harry Samuels, IC. I was at that meeting about the purchase of the land and everything, and everybody agreed that the way we were going to finance it was completely unfair, because the way it was said at the meeting, that the oldest group, they start paying into it and everybody else joins in. My theory is that when the association is registered, they start paying the amount that has to buy the place back. Then the older ones, they start paying as they are registered. So they all start at different times, but they end at the same time. Because the way it is now, Hive is going to be paying for extra, or whoever the darn thing is, and we can't use the place because we don't exist.
Thank you very much for your observations, and I'd like to answer it because probably a lot of you have the same question. There are certain things we have no choice about. It's in the documents. It is in the documents that we signed, each of you, when you bought your unit, that we pay rent for 50 years. You have signed for that. And some were built earlier, so their 50 years are going to end earlier. Others were built later. It's going to, carry on for a little longer. But as much as we all might disagree on what's fair and what's not fair, as a legal document, it is in writing that those rental payments will continue from 50 years from the date that your condominium association began. It's something we can talk about in the future, and maybe someone will come up with ideas and ways around it. But and I'll leave the legal angle to Peter Sachs to talk about, but it's in the documents. So thank you for your question. It wasn't important.
We can't modify those if the group, if the whole association votes on it to change that rule. They can't.
You could. I don't want to give legal advice because that's Peter's job. But the Levy family and the Levy organization would have to agree to any cutback in the monies that they get. You've agreed to pay them a certain. Truly, I'm not going to continue this because this is legal. These are questions that should have been raised with Peter Sachs, and he will be here again. So let's table this question.
Okay, one thing I was going to say, levies are still going to get the same amount of money. All we have to do is say raise everybody's $5 a month. That'll make up for the lost income that we're going to have to pay them fairly. That's all.
Thank you. It's just something that we can take. Susan, I see you're struggling to get my attention.
Wait.
We have to wait for the microphone. I'm sorry.
We have two other, but Susan, we have two other people before you. Let's be fair. Let's be fair. Yes, go ahead. Who has them? Go ahead.
I'm first. This is about old business. You went too fast, Michael. I couldn't get my hand up. I'd like to know what's happening with the sliding automatic door in the back, and also with the canopies in the front on the walkway. I know that was on the agenda to do that this year.
Stanley?
It's all going to be taken care of.
When?
When?
This year?
Hopefully, yes.
Okay. Normally it's
Yes, Rich, and then Susan.
The reason I say hopefully, and I heard a comment, when you order things today, it takes a year and a day to get it because everything is very erratic. And so we're at the mercy of the vendor that's going to supply it to us. But the canopies are on order, or are going to be taken care of, the building will be taken care of, the sliding door will be taken care of, and hopefully we'll get everything done.
And Stanley, if I can just add and make it simple, it's in the budget. It's in the budget, so.
Thanks, Sid.
Okay, Rich.
Richard Diamond, Suffolk. Sid, I want to make a point. I unfortunately couldn't attend that meeting, but I heard something that was brought up at the meeting that it's unfair that these older associations have to pay that money, and the gentleman brought it up. Why don't they keep in mind the older associations, the people long before them paid in most of the money. They're long gone. They're not paying a lot of money since they moved in.
Question here.
There's no answer. Thank you for your observation. It's the way the contracts were written, and it would take litigation, and I don't know that anyone wants to get into litigation.
Ask if she's a
But again,
delegate.
it's a question for our council.
So, would you ask her if she's a delegate, please? Are you a delegate? You'll come in 1 minute. As soon as the delegates finish, as soon as Susan finishes.
Susan, the microphone is coming to you.
Okay. Ask 2 questions.
Hi, I'm Susan from Ainsley. The gentleman who spoke first about the 2028 acquisition had a second question. He said he's afraid that because his association will still pay rent longer than others, he will not be able to use the clubhouse and the recreational facilities.
That is not at all correct. From the moment, if indeed the community votes yes to acquire, to buy out the Levy family and acquire the clubhouse, everybody has their interest in it from that moment on. Whether you live in Brighton or Cornwall, where those runoffs or runouts will finish in 2 or 3 months, or if you live in Yarmouth, where indeed it will take close to 5 years for your runouts to run out, you are all equal members of that is in the documents that Levy has presented over the years. You will all be equal members of the community owning the clubhouse, the rec facilities, and you will be equal voices in the services, which are the roads, the security, the buses, the transportation. So the amount of your run out will have no effect on your interest and participation in either the rec or the community services.
Any other questions from the delegates? Okay, we have a woman who was standing up. Where was she? There she's right here. Just tell us who you are and where you live, please.
Hi, my name is AJ. I'm from Mansfield. It is my understanding that the associations that were bought the associations that were built after one side of the Century Village is paying more in rent or maintenance than the others. So in the long run, it's supposed to even out. Is that correct?
No. The simple answer is no. It will never even out. The people who bought earlier are paying less for their units, not the operational part of the rent. There are 2 parts to the coupon that you pay, your SunWest coupon. There's the operational, which pays for the ongoing maintenance and maintenance of the community, and then there's a part that is the profit is the only way to put it, the return on investment that goes to the developer. So there is definitely a difference in the cost to the south side for the most part and the north side.
Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fred Hadley, Cornwall E. Before I say a word, I just want to make a correction. In the Village Century, it stated that Rexford had gone with hot wire as a typographer. I apologize to everybody in Rexford Association for that error. It will be corrected in print as well. Conspicuously absent from today's meeting was any report from the Cable Committee. Now, I know the chairman of the Cable Committee, or former chairman, resigned, but I understand there's still a committee. I don't know why we're not getting any report. I would also like to know why the bids, which were turned over to the association at the beginning of November. Is that correct, Michael? Is that correct?
I was the chairman. Talk to the chairman.
Well, no, you were the president of my association.
Yes.
Did you get the bids at the beginning of November? Excuse me, did you get the bids? Anyway, he doesn't want to answer. The bids have been turned over to the association 3 months ago. They are not posted on any of the portals. The First Service is in charge of those portals and is supposed to put up all bids and contracts so that you, the unit owners, can make informed decisions about what contract you want or don't want. Now, the other thing is the inspection reports. I don't know of any association other than Cornwall that has posted their milestone inspection reports. Several of these reports state that these covers on the backs of the 4-story buildings are injuring the building and must be removed. This information is not being put on your portals. Why? It appears to me that the Cable Committee is trying to keep us in the dark so they can force everybody to sign with Comcast. Now, I have nothing against Comcast. I enjoy their service a lot. But now a better deal has come along, and five of the associations have said they don't trust the decision that Cobrua made. Well, if they won't trust them on these decisions, why should we trust them on the 2028 committee? We need more transparency. I want those bids posted on every one of the 16 portals. You are breaking the law. First Service and Cobrua is allowing this to occur.
Okay, time's up. Your time's up.
Yeah. Do you have a response? You're the president of Cobrua.
I don't have a response.
Why don't you have a response?
Because I don't have one.
Well, then you should resign. If you can't explain why we're being withheld,
time is up, Fred.
What's happening is that they are going to have legal liability.
I will remove you. Don't let me do that, Fred. Don't let me do that. Okay, anybody else? Have a motion to adjourn? Please tell us your name. I say it every month because he will yell. Second, all in favor? Thank you very much. And thank you people out there who are not delegates for coming to the meeting.